All right. Good morning. Thanks for joining this Samba Scientific webinar. My name is Jenna Gallegos. I'm our Director of Client Services. And today I'm going to be talking about creating a goals-driven life science marketing budget. It's that time of year when everybody's putting together their 2025 marketing budget. And we often have a lot of prospective clients that are reaching out looking to us for help. So we wanted to provide a resource to all of you as you're putting your 2025 plans together. In the way of introduction, before I joined Samba Scientific, my background was in molecular biology, synthetic biology, and science communication. I've been working with Samba for about 6 years now, helping small and growing biotech companies with their marketing strategies and execution. All right, I think we'll go ahead and get into the meat of it. So today I'm going to talk through first why, when, and how one should set a marketing budget. I'm going to go a lot into goals and KPIs because at the end of the day, you want to really make sure that your budget is set up to deliver measurable goals. I'll help define what activities help you meet those particular goals and KPIs, and then bring that back to budget, including recommendations for limited budget and ad versus marketing budget. And then share a few tips for success in making sure that when you go to execute on this marketing budget, you're achieving what you expect to, and following up with a little bit of information about when you might want to insource versus outsource for marketing support. All right, so the first question to address is this the right time for your company to invest in marketing? There are three questions that we often ask. The first is, do you know what product or service you are selling? Is this going to be kits, assays, services, getting that well defined? Do you know who your target customers are, who you're going to be speaking to? And do you understand what's important to them and what you're really providing in terms of solving for their pain points? If you answered no to any of those questions, that's okay. It just may mean that we need to do a little bit more background work before diving into marketing in product development, customer discovery, or market research. We at Samba Scientific can help you with those things as well. We also have partners who really excel and focus in those areas. So if you feel like you need help with those things, please reach out and we can set you on the right track. If you answered yes to this, you know what you're selling and to whom, then the next step is to go ahead and set a budget, make a plan, and then execute on that plan. So if you don't know me, why should you listen to me or to Samba Scientific at all? We have worked with over 150 life science companies to date, helping them launch and grow their marketing efforts. So we have a lot of experience in different areas. Our team has over 130 years of combined experience, either at the bench or in sales and commercial roles. So we know the industry, we know marketing, and if you want to see some success stories, you can find those on our website in the case studies section. So I want to start first with helping you define and categorize your goals. This will be a conversation that you'll want to have between the marketing team, the sales team, and the leadership team to make sure you're all on the same page. I categorized the goals into four basic areas: brand awareness, brand elevation, lead generation, and outbound sales. These goals are related, but there are different sort of measurables and activities that we'll want to associate with those that are important to consider when you're putting together your budget. So if you're in need of brand awareness, what we'll typically hear prospects say is things like, we want people to say that they've heard of us. We want them to be familiar with our name. We want them to know that we offer not only X, but also B, or we want to expand into a new target market. Maybe we're known in one market, but we want to reach a different kind of audience. So just to give some examples of what brand awareness materials and execution can look like, a quick case study. Levgo is a company that sells disposable spatulas. They came to us wanting to increase their brand recognition in the US. So we helped them develop a landing page, ads, and conference creative, and then deployed those widely. Over 5 months, we got them 16 million ad impressions and 60,000 ad clicks. So I'm starting to talk a little bit about measurables, in this case, impressions and clicks. I'll talk more about that throughout the webinar in terms of what kind of KPIs can help you track success in particular goals. Beyond brand awareness, there's brand elevation. These goals often come from your board or from your leadership. They want to be seen as a major player, as a leader, as the expert in the space. Or they want to really impress investors, partners, and customers. So this is a little bit more intangible, as opposed to brand awareness, where that's people know about you and what you do. Brand elevation is people are really impressed by you and understand that you do it the best. So what does that look like in terms of execution? A company formerly known as Apcara wanted to rebrand themselves as Ambient. They have a technology that provides room temperature enzyme stabilization. So the Ambient name would really help them to accomplish that. We helped them with a rebrand, so new logo, new colors, updating their website, and then launching that new brand via social. Through this process, they saw an increase in website traffic, time on their web pages, and then the new contacts that were coming in through their website. Lead generation is probably the biggest category of goals that we see people coming to us for. This is really tactical marketing at its core. So if your goal is to generate leads, you're wanting to get more qualified prospects in front of your sales team, generating more contacts through your website or through your conference activities. So you're maximizing your conference ROI, and also building out your own marketing list. So you have contacts that you can nurture and let know about new product launches, etc. So an example here, we've been working with AGC Biologics for a few years. They wanted us to help them increase the lead generation potential of their website. So we created content for them, hosted webinars, did conversion optimization of their website, and launched ads across various channels. That allowed them to increase the monthly leads that were coming in through their website substantially, both organically and from ads. All right. And last of all, outbound sales. This is the most sort of direct to customer. Sometimes we talk with prospects who really want to book more meetings for their sales team, and they want to better equip their sales team to make the most of those meetings and close deals and ultimately grow revenue. So goals around revenue and actual sales are really outbound sales goals as opposed to specific marketing or lead generation goals. And I'll talk a little bit about how they all relate in a minute. In terms of examples there, we recently worked with Enrich Biosystems to help them book sales meetings for their instrument. That included building a really custom email list of prospects that were likely to be interested in their instrument, sending out emails to those prospects, as well as following them up with phone calls. And the outcome of that was positive replies to those emails and meetings booked with really very interested prospects. Now you're probably thinking, but we actually want to do all of those things. We want people to know who we are, think we're great, fill out forms on our website, and then also buy our product or service. And that is true of all companies. But of course, your budget and your time and your resources are probably limited. And so my goal for the rest of this webinar is to help you really set the priorities and identify the key activities that are going to meet your most important and urgent goals, and then measure the success as you go so that ultimately you can grow your efforts. If you make a few more sales now, then you have more revenue, so you can do things like investing and elevating your brand. All right, so now how do we actually translate those goals into measurable key performance indicators? There's a lot of information on this slide. Again, the recording will be available later, so you can continue to reference it. But what I wanted to call out is that actually the metrics can be pretty different depending on the goals. So when we're talking about brand awareness, we're usually looking at web traffic, social followers, ad engagement, or email engagement, and event engagement. Brand elevation is a little bit harder to quantify. How do you measure how great people think you are? Some ways we can do this is through net promoter scores from your customers, surveys of prospects, reviews through Google, so asking your current customers to review you, keeping track of referrals or offering referral incentives. And then your website engagement. So if somebody does not think very highly of your company, they find themselves on your website, they're probably going to leave immediately. If they're impressed by your website and they find useful information there, they're more likely to stay and remain engaged. Lead generation is a bit easier to measure, And generally it comes down to form fills. That can be by new or existing contacts, replies to emails if you're sending emails to new prospects that are not already part of your marketing list, the badges that you scan at a conference, and then the registrants that you get when you host a webinar. And then outbound sales, this is the most sort of bottom of funnel metrics. Of course, outbound sales are going to translate into revenue. You can also track meetings booked, deals closed. If you're actually selling a product through e-commerce, sales can be tracked directly, and then repeat sales from existing customers. All right, so why does all of this matter? Odds are there are people at your organization who are decision makers, and there are a few of these metrics that are going to be important to them. And what's going to be essential is sort of identifying those metrics and then making sure that we're picking the right activities to help lead to those metrics so that we can show success in the short and long term. So commonly what we'll find is that companies will have a revenue goal, but they won't really have any other clearly defined goals. So all of these other activities that are leading up to revenue, they don't have them clearly defined. So one of the things we'll do first is help them work backwards from a revenue goal, which is really a sales metric, to a lead generation goal, which is a marketing metric. And the way that we do that is actually pretty simple. So we start with the revenue goal. In this case, I've used $1 million, we'll say, for a quarter as an example. We get an idea of what the average deal size is, what the close rate is. So if your sales team gets a meeting with this prospect, what's the likelihood they're going to close the deal? And then your lead conversion rate. So for any lead that comes in through a conference or through a website, what is the likelihood that that lead is going to ultimately go on and book a meeting with your sales team member? And we leverage CRMs to track this data. We like to use HubSpot in particular, but there are a number of ways that you can sort of track and calculate these numbers. So then once we have those starting numbers, the first step is to translate from revenue to opportunities. So we do that by taking your revenue goal divided by your average deal size divided by your percent close rate. And so in this example, that comes out to 500 opportunities. And then we translate from there from opportunities to leads. So that's your opportunities, 500 divided by your lead conversion rate, 10%, to get 5,000 leads. So if you have a $1 million revenue goal, and this is what your lead to sale conversion rates look like, then you know that you need to generate 5,000 leads. So that gives your marketing team a really concrete goal to go after. All right, so now that we've got our KPIs defined, what are the actual marketing activities that we should engage in to hit those KPIs? I'm going to go again by sort of the goal category. I've got the KPIs here again for reference for you guys, but focusing now on activities. So when it comes to brand awareness, we can generate awareness by building out content on our website and optimizing our website for SEO. So for instance, if you are in the sequencing space, your prospective customers might be looking for troubleshooting in library preparation. And so we could create blogs around common troubleshooting problems in library preparation. And then when people are searching for that information, they're going to find their way to your company website, become aware of you. Paid and unpaid social campaigns are also a great way to get in front of a large number of people. Typically in this industry, we focus on LinkedIn and X. Google and third-party ads can amplify your message even more. So Google ads leverage existing search traffic. So if somebody is searching for a solution for the problem in their library prep, we can put an ad out that uses those keywords. And so then your page will rise to the top of those search results. And then third-party ad campaigns we can run through journals, so Science, Nature, Cell, through scientific news organizations like Genome Web or Fierce Pharma, or in combination with various associations or conferences. Marketing emails, of course, also help to build awareness. We can send those out to new contacts to build awareness about, say, new products, because obviously if they're an existing contact, they're already familiar with your brand, or for new contacts, making them aware of your company and your offering of the first time. And then conference exhibition and large parties. So exhibiting at a conference gives you a huge amount of awareness. It also gives you some leads in terms of badges scanned, but there's a big awareness value that's harder to quantify. And then if you do really large events associated with those conferences, that's going to expand your awareness even further. All right, just a few examples of some of the creative that we've made around brand awareness before, so you can kind of get an idea of what this looks like in the wild, and maybe some of this will be familiar. Moving on to brand elevation. So again, this is getting people to think a lot of your brand, trust your brand. Often one of the most visceral ways to do this is a rebrand. So creating a new name, logo, branding that better represents you, that's more sophisticated, that's more modern. This is generally followed by a website refresh. Website refreshes, you may also want to do the same branding just in order to elevate the design, make them more interactive, or make your messaging more clear. Digging into your competitors, figuring out how to best differentiate your brand and tell a really clear, compelling story will help you to elevate your brand. Technical content is a great way to show that you know what you're talking about, that you have experts in-house. A lot of companies will claim to have the best expertise in the field, but if you create really good technical content, then you can show that. This can come in the form of downloadable assets or editorials that are featured on LinkedIn or through third-party sites. Conference talks and posters also help to elevate your brand. It's even better if you can get one of your customers, a KOL, to speak on your behalf, because anytime you're associating yourself with a key opinion leader, that's going to help you elevate your brand. And then last of all, we have PR. So this is one of the first things I think people think of when they think about brand elevation. They want their company to be talked about in the general media. But it's important to note that when it comes to public relations, in order for a story to get picked up, it has to be a really compelling story scientifically. And so PR is great for things like if you have new publications or big partnerships. It's not going to get you as far for just announcing a new product. Still important to get out there, but maybe not quite as worth investing in as some of these more direct methods. All right, a few examples of brand elevation. So website refreshes, KOL activities, rebrands, and updated graphics and messaging. Moving on to lead generation. Again, this is sort of the meat of the marketing. One really great way to ensure you're generating leads is to conversion optimize your website. Make sure the people that are coming to your website are having multiple opportunities to interact and are compelled to interact and provide their information. We can do this for creating and promoting gated content through your website or through third-party platforms. Marketing emails sent out to new contacts, particularly if those include some kind of gated asset, can help you generate leads, or to promote webinars. Webinars are really king for lead generation, probably the best way to quickly and cost effectively generate new leads for you. And then exhibiting at conferences, you'll get to scan badges. So here's a few examples of lead generation materials. So promoting ebooks, promoting webinars, engaging people to fill out forms. And lastly, outbound sales. So outbound sales activities includes sourcing lists of prospects. So that might be looking at recent publications, looking at recent grants, leveraging tools like ZoomInfo or SciLeads to source leads, cold calling and cold emails, doing LinkedIn outreach that can be direct connections from your sales team or can be a bit more indirect. So we can send in-mail messages on behalf of your sales team, for instance. Creating various sales collateral from decks to brochures to battle cards. And then smaller, more intimate events such as lunch and learns at particular locations associated with universities, etc. Here's a few examples of sales materials we've created for clients. All right, this is the same slide as before, aligning our goals and activities. I just wanted to bring it back for reference again because I know it's a lot of different information, but basically once you've worked with your team to identify your specific goals and measurables, you want to make sure you're picking activities that are going to lead up into those goals and measurables. Also worth noting here that some activities are going to serve multiple goals. So if you refresh your website, you can elevate your brand, update your branding, or improve your messaging, but also increase conversions and get more leads at the same time. Ads are great for both generating awareness, which is measured by impressions or clicks, and also for leading people to fill out forms so you can generate leads, or to direct sales if e-commerce makes sense for your business. And generating content is fantastic because it shows thought leadership, it helps build trust, it provides opportunities for SEO because the more content you have on your website, the more keywords there are for people to search and become associated with your website. And they can be a direct tool for lead generation. So we can leverage white papers in ad campaigns or in emails to prompt people to download them. And they can be a sales tool, print them out, bring them with you to conferences. All right, so once we've got our activities defined, how do we translate those into a budget? I'm going to give some ballpark numbers for a lot of these different activities that'll help you guys set an initial budget. Of course, if you want to consult with us and get more into your specific needs, we can help you set a more customized budget as well. All right. So in marketing, there are a number of one-off costs and recurring costs. So starting first with our one-off costs, if you're going to do a rebrand, that's going to range in cost from 20 to 50,000. Typically, it can even go up from there. You know, if you work with really big, long-standing agencies, they can charge huge amounts for these rebrands. There are also lower cost options if you just want to do a little bit of a brand refresh. But that's about what you're going to be looking at for a rebrand. For a website refresh, it's really going to depend on the size of your website and the complexity of the website. So these can range anywhere from 15,000 to 150,000 or more. In terms of updating your messaging, typically that's going to include taking a look at your competitors, maybe interviewing your customers, might be some market research in there, as well as just writing new taglines, defining your personas. There's a good range in cost there, and again, that's going to depend on how much detail you go into. Website conversion optimization, on the other hand, can be pretty low cost. So this is things like making sure you have calls to action throughout your web page, you have multiple opportunities for visitors to engage, and your website is sort of easy to navigate, clear and concise. Booth materials range from, you know, a backdrop all the way up to, you know, full islands with videos, etc. I put a range of 5 to 15 here. They can go up from that for really, really big displays, but most of the companies that we work with are sort of in the $5,000 to $15,000 range for their booths. Then we have our sales and marketing collateral and events. Brochures, infographics, and decks are going to run around 3,000 to 9,000. That's going to depend on the length, the complexity, whether there's content and design involved or both. Videos can start at around 3,000 and go up to 15,000 or even more if you're getting into really complex 3D work. White papers, case studies, and ebooks will range from around 4 to 12, and that's going to depend on the length, the complexity, you know, whether we're incorporating a ton of different references or just one or two. Editorials and blogs, 3,000 to 5,000. That difference is really going to depend on whether you're just posting something to your site versus if you're wanting to place it as a sponsored editorial through a third-party journal or science news org. Small events and webinars range from around 5 to 15. We host our webinars for 9,000, so sort of middle of the road there. And then the large events can get, you know, fairly expensive, 20 to 50K. There's also going to be various recurring costs that you're going to want to occur or that you're going to want to consider. SEO work ongoing will range from 1,000 to 5,000 a month, and that depends on whether it's including development of a bunch of content or just, you know, optimizing and tweaking your website. Social campaigns can range from around 1,000 to 3,000 a month, depending on whether these are organic, unpaid, or paid campaigns. Ad campaigns, there's a big range depending on the channel, and I'll talk a little bit more about how to get the most bang for your buck from ads in a bit. But typically we see companies budgeting around $5,000 to $15,000 a month for ads. And marketing emails will run around $1,000 to $3,000 a month, and that's going to depend on really whether you're sourcing the list internally or whether you're renting that list or mining that list externally. Similarly, prospect list acquisition, $1,000 to $3,000 a month. If you outsource cold calls and emails to a third party, that's typically going to be around $1,000 to $3,000 a month. And then similar for the LinkedIn outreach, $3,000 to $5,000 a month. So that's including the actual work and the ad spend itself. All right, that is a lot of information. You guys will have this for reference later. I wanted to put it into some more bite-sized chunks here. So typically we'll see companies engage in sort of packages of work. So something like a full rebrand where you're updating logo, colors, building a new website, refreshing all of the marketing materials. That's typically going to be around 50 to 200K. And again, a lot of that's going to depend on the size and the complexity of your website. One-off lead generation campaigns, which can include hosting a webinar or creating some content, putting that material on a landing page and then promoting it through email, social, and ads are typically going to run around 10 to 20K. And then in terms of sort of recurring monthly marketing, we typically see companies investing around 5 to 15K for minimal marketing, which is going to include minor regular website updates, minor SEO work, ongoing ad management, and occasional new content, either for strict lead generation or to promote product launches, etc. And then companies that are investing a little bit more aggressively in their marketing will typically see around 20 to 30K. That's going to include regular new web pages, so more substantial website work, ongoing comprehensive SEO, ads, email, and social, as well as really regular new content to be leveraged for SEO, lead generation, and launches. Looks like I have a question here. I'm going to go ahead and answer it because it's relevant to webinars. So Jared asked, we've thought about hosting webinars. Fear has always been it'll take a lot of time and effort, and very few people will attend. So I guess a little bit of an aside on webinars. I was going to talk about this later, but I'll just briefly say now. To get the most of your webinars, the best thing to do is to leverage an external speaker. If you have a customer that's willing to speak on your behalf, we find that generally webinars have pretty good attendance rates. People want to show up and they want to hear about the results that their fellow scientists have been able to get using your technology. They don't necessarily want to show up and hear a sales pitch. And so really, whether it comes to if the effort is worth it for webinars, it all depends on what the content for that webinar is going to be. A lot of our customers work with pharma, and so their customers are unwilling to speak on their behalf because they're, keeping things pretty tight-lipped. If that's the case, that's okay. There are other options. We can always organize panels of industry experts just to talk about a hot topic in the field. And then we can sort of relate that back to your work. So, for instance, if you're in the spatial arena, you could bring in some academic experts in spatial biology to talk about why spatial is important, show some compelling data. And then at the end, you could give a little pitch about your spatial technology and how it's helping scientists. The second question was, how important are media buys? How much budget should be allocated? I will absolutely get to that shortly. A few quick recommendations. If your budget is limited, prioritize conversion optimizing your website over beautifying your website. So we often talk to people who say, we want more leads. We think we need to overhaul our website and add more bells and whistles. Adding bells and whistles to your website is likely ultimately going to generate leads, but it takes a lot of time and it can be expensive, and there are quicker fixes you can make that can be really substantial. Also, make sure you can leverage and repurpose existing content wherever possible. So you may not have a white paper, but maybe you have a poster. Turning that poster into a white paper or a blog as opposed to starting something from scratch can be a really budget effective way to make your content go further. Google Ads typically have the best ROI and they work faster than SEO. I'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but SEO is a lot of investment and it's a fairly slow gain. You can see results from Google Ads much faster. And as I already mentioned, webinars are king, but it is important to make sure that that webinar is educational and not a sales pitch. All right. So if your budget is limited, what is the best way to spend $10,000? If a company comes to us and says they have $10,000, we generally suggest that they conversion optimize their website and that they launch some Google Ads, or if they have a good speaker, that they do a webinar for lead generation. Conversely, if you have a little bit more budget, that's when you might start to think about a small website refresh if your website hasn't been updated in a while, in addition to those Google Ads, or a content-based inbound campaign, which is basically where you create some kind of content piece like a white paper or an infographic that's going to help people solve a problem or answer a question that's important to them, and then feature that as gated content on a landing page and promote that landing page through various channels. Once you get into the $50,000 range, it's reasonable to expect that you could do a website refresh and ads, as well as a webinar and a content-based inbound campaign. And then if your budget is a bit larger, then that's time to think about sort of a full-scale website refresh and starting to invest more in trade shows in addition to the other lead gen efforts that we start at with smaller budgets at. Okay, back to your question about media buy and ads specifically. So there's really two categories we think about in terms of ads. There's pay-per-click, which is generally Google and LinkedIn. We've helped some companies with Facebook and X as well, but most are in Google and LinkedIn, or third-party ads. So Google and LinkedIn, you pay for the clicks. You can generally expect to pay somewhere around $2 per click if your ads are managed well. Conversions generally run somewhere between $10 to $100 per conversion, and that range really depends on how you're defining the conversion. So whether we're asking somebody to just download a brochure or if it's actually requesting a quote. We recommend budgeting at least $50 a day at the start of any LinkedIn or Google Ads campaign. That's just to make sure you can get enough data to optimize your ads. Otherwise, you end up working with, an N of one and it's hard to draw conclusions. So Google is really going to give you the best ROI of all of the ads if the search demand exists. So if people are already using Google to search for a solution similar to what you're offering, then you absolutely should get Google Ads up immediately. There are quick free ways that we can check for that. And so if you're wondering whether or not that might be the case for your company, reach out to us and we can help you with that. If the search demand does not exist, so for instance, you're offering something that's so new that people aren't actually looking for it, or maybe they're typically insourcing this and they might not be thinking about looking for an external partner for it, then in that case, we might move to LinkedIn. LinkedIn ads really only work well for promoting educational content. They're not great for sales because people don't go to LinkedIn to shop. They go into LinkedIn to connect with their peers and to learn. And so things like promoting ebooks or white papers or webinars can do really, really well on LinkedIn. Then we have the third-party ads, journals, science, news orgs. What's great about those is they offer a variety of formats. So there's e-blasts where you send them an email and they send it to their opted-in lists. Newsletter sponsorships where you just put an ad in their regular newsletter that goes out to their lists, or site-wide banners. The costs can really vary widely for these. And in our experience, we get the best performance when we do newsletter sponsorship, and again, when we're promoting educational content there. So webinars, white papers, case studies. Things like site-wide banners are really better for awareness. You're going to get those impressions, but you're not going to see the clicks or the conversions. We pulled some data for a few different channels here, and this is for a single campaign for a single client. So take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But as you can see, the costs the cost per click can differ widely depending on the ad type, banner ads versus newsletters, and depending on the channel. And this is just a small sampling of the channels that we've worked with and tested. So we have a lot more information that can potentially glean there if you want to reach out and talk about it. Generally, we suggest budgeting $2,000 to $5,000 per channel to try it out. And then if that channel works for you, then it's worth investing more. But if your ad budget is limited, and there is search volume, definitely start with Google. If there's not, start with LinkedIn and then move into third party. So how do you set your ad budget based on your lead gen goal? Earlier in the webinar, I talked about how to calculate a lead gen goal from revenue. So now how do you translate that into an ad budget goal? Let's say your goal is 1,000 leads. On Google and LinkedIn, we can assume about $50 per lead. Again, you're really going to have to do some testing to figure out the cost per lead for you, because it's going to depend on what your offering is and what you're tracking as conversions. But we'll start with an assumption of $50 per lead. So then you just take your cost per lead times your goal. In this case, that gives you a $50,000 total ad budget. Since we recommend running $50 per day per channel, if you're going to run on Google and LinkedIn, that means your total $50,000 budget is going to be divided by $100, 50 per channel, divided by 30 days in a month. So you would run for 16 months at $3,000 a month to hit this $1,000 goal. You guys can get this after the fact and plug in your own numbers, but that's the basic approach that we take. And then how do you translate that to ROI? You want to make sure you're getting return on investment from your ads. So you start with your ad spend. You're going to have some calculation at the end of this of what it costs you to get a lead. You'll have your lead conversion rate. Again, that's how likely it is to convert a lead to an opportunity. So you use that to calculate cost per opportunity, which in this case comes out to $500. And then you go back from your opportunity to your revenue. So that's how likely is your opportunity to actually translate into a sale. If your close rate is 20%, in this case, you're spending $2,500 per deal. And then to translate that to ROI, you bring back in your average deal size. So in this case, the ROI is 10,000 divided by 2,500, or 400% ROI on your ads. So if your average deal size is $10,000, your close rate is 20%, your lead to opportunity conversion rate is 10%, and you're currently spending $50 per lead, then you're seeing a 400% ROI. So you can use this to calculate what is the cost per lead that you need to be accomplishing in order to hit your ROI and profitability goals. All right, we're running a little bit short on time, so I'm going to run through the last slides kind of fast, but you guys will have them for reference for later. Just wanted to call out some common pitfalls, mistakes we see companies make that we want to warn you against because we want you all to be successful. Oftentimes there's a disconnect between what people want to track in terms of their goal, but what activities they think they should do. So very often we see board members, for instance, that want more revenue, and they think the way to do that is to overhaul the website. But as I've said, that website overhaul may be very expensive and may take 6 months, and you're not going to see a revenue gain in the meantime. So there might be other activities that we can engage in immediately that are going to help you meet that revenue goal, that'll help you build out budget to do that brand elevation work down the line. Brand awareness is a little bit hard to quantify. I think it's important to see the value of brand awareness and know when that's what you're accomplishing, because you're sort of setting yourself up for missed expectations. If you do a lot of social work, or you go into conferences or do conference sponsorship thinking that's going to lead to direct leads or sales, it's more likely going to lead to a lot of awareness that's going to pay off down the line. So just setting those reasonable expectations. Driving traffic to the website really only increases website traffic. It does not necessarily increase your conversions. It does not necessarily increase your sales. If you're not driving the right kind of traffic, you're not going to see results just from driving traffic. So if you're using tools like Push that just put a lot of traffic on the website, or if you're running ads, but whoever is managing those ads doesn't know how to tell the difference between a search inquiry from an undergraduate trying to answer a basic question, or a hypochondriac looking for information about symptoms versus, someone that's an actual decision maker in the space, then you're going to end up with more traffic, but nothing to show for it. So want to make sure you're driving the right kind of traffic and that your website converts. Other common pitfalls include misconceptions about timelines. So as I mentioned already, SEO is not the kind of thing you see results on tomorrow. You have to build SEO over time. And so if you're wanting to see returns immediately on the scale of weeks or months, then we recommend starting that SEO work, but also implementing some Google Ads so that you can see faster returns. Another pitfall we see is just not being clear on the order of operations. So we'll have companies that will start on website updates, and halfway through updating the new website, they say, well, maybe we want new colors and maybe we want new fonts. And so making sure that you're really clear on what are all of the changes that you're going to be going through and doing those in an order such that you're not going to have to repeat work. Another common pitfall is depending too much on your R&D team. So your R&D team is, of course, the best place to look for technical content, but unfortunately, creating marketing content is not their highest priority. And so we'll see companies that often end up waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting to launch campaigns because they can't get their R&D team to put together marketing materials for them. And so that's why it's important to leverage an agency or someone internally that both can speak the science and speak marketing to put those materials together for you so you're not bottlenecked. And then awareness, it can take months or years to fully realize, and it can be difficult to measure. That doesn't mean it's not valuable. It just means you want to hedge your expectations around awareness and when to expect to realize those results. Some things are also hard to measure. I've already said awareness and brand perception are hard to measure. Also, when it comes to generating leads and then those leads turning into sales, oftentimes there's going to be multiple touch points. So a given customer may see an ad, see an email, download an asset, and at some point down the line, they're going to decide to make a sale. And it can be difficult to really attribute which action along the way was sort of the most important for that. So just to, grain of salt when it comes to your metrics, it is a little bit more of a soft science, unfortunately. And so it's important to measure a lot of different parameters and look at the data really carefully. All right. The good news is inbound lead generation works. If you want to know more about this, go to our website, take a look at our case studies. We have lots and lots of success stories from taking an inbound lead generation approach. Conversion optimization of the website is often an important key to that. And people are using Google more and more. That means they're less likely to open your cold emails, but they're also more likely to go searching for a solution themselves. And we can capitalize on that using the tools that Google has made available to us. All right. Last 10 minutes. So you've got your plan, you've got your budget. How do you get all this stuff done? In some cases, it might make sense to hire somebody or leverage somebody internally. That would be if your need for a single skill set, so be that technical writing, graphic design, website development, one particular area. If you have enough of a need for that equates to 40 hours a week and a budget of around $5,000 to $10,000 a month, somebody's salary, then it makes sense to hire somebody to do that specifically. You're going to do a ton of web development, hire a web developer. If you're not, then it might make more sense to consider outsourcing. When it comes to outsourcing, and I'm going to open a poll here because I'd like to hear a little bit about what you guys are already using. So if you see that poll pop up on your screen, feel free to fill that out. When it comes to outsourcing, you can leverage contractors. Typically, that'll be a single contractor for a single skill, so a technical writing contractor, a web development contractor. They can be great to work with, but their availability can vary, and so you might have to, really know in advance how much and when you're going to need that support. And then there's agencies. There's lots of general marketing agencies out there that can help you with things like graphic design, but you're probably going to have to provide them all of the content and they're not going to know a lot about your market. So you're also going to have to tell them, no, sorry, that stock photo with a microscope in it is not relevant. We don't do microscopy. So of course we are biased, but we recommend going with life science-based marketing agencies because they provide multiple skills and expertise as well as a deep understanding of the market. And that understanding of the market includes not only the ability to execute, but also the ability to help you with strategy. As I said, we've worked with over 150 companies. We've probably tried things that you're thinking about trying before, and we've probably seen success with a company similar to yours. And so we can help you figure out how to sort of follow that path and that trail that they've already blazed. And so if you are interested in fractional CMO support or strategic marketing support, please reach out to us as well. All right, so Q&A, I see some more questions coming in. Brief reminder, that's where that happens there. I'll start with one we have in the queue now. Any thoughts on changes for marketing with the expansion of adoption of AI, thinking website SEO or technical content with people searching and using ChatGPT? Yes, so we have thought about a ton about AI. We actually have our own in-house AI expert who helps us look into tools, build bots, figure out how to best leverage AI for marketing. What we have learned from that is that AI is really good at some things. It's really good at analysis, and so we can use it to analyze a large amount of data. For instance, a lot of data around ad performance. We can use it to analyze competitors' websites and summarize how they are positioning themselves. We can use it to search the literature, to find prospects who are publishing in certain areas. Search the web in really more powerful ways than typical search engines. We can also use it to increase efficiency. So use it to summarize or write content. If you guys have played with this at all, though, you've probably realized that it's not entirely trustworthy. So you have to edit and watch it pretty carefully to make sure that it's getting things accurate. So we see AI as absolutely an enablement tool. It's not going to function on its own. It's not going to pick up a lot of these capacities for you, but it can definitely be used to increase efficiency, and I think more importantly, to increase the depth of your analysis and your work. And we have our founder and CEO, Jason, is on the call too. So Jason, I'll invite you if you feel like you want to chime in and say more about AI, because I know this is something you've thought a lot about. Feel free to jump in.
Thanks, Jenna. Yeah, I mean, it's really good. I'd say it's really good at creating derivative material from something that already exists. And when creative thought is involved, either from a graphic concept or from a sort of a written copy perspective, originality I don't feel like is necessarily its strong suit. So yeah, so fast and good at sort of idea generation. It can get you about 80-90% of the way there in one fell swoop, depending on sort of what the application is. But we do find that expert review and nuance is appropriate in order to use that for anything that's going to be public facing.
All right. Hopefully that answered your question, Simon. If not, feel free to put in a follow-up. Someone asks, is this data based on certain sized companies? It's largely based on our experience with what we would call growth stage companies. So that's everything from startups to sort of newly publicly traded companies. So most of the time, really large companies, it starts to make sense for them to insource more of the work because they're doing a higher volume. So we have mostly worked with companies that are in the 2 to 200 employee range, I would say. All right, how do scientific publications play into a marketing strategy? Is this a fruitful activity? Scientific publications are probably the best way to get you PR. And so I feel like they're really under leveraged when it comes to PR. So journalists only want to tell stories that are unbiased. And there is an assumption that publications, particularly with academic partners, are unbiased. And so if you are working with partners to publish, you should absolutely be leveraging the publications. The best way to do that is before the publication goes into print, get a press release out under embargo on your Reek alert, because that's where journalists look to pick it up. Once the publication is out, ask the authors to put on a webinar to talk about those findings, to really amplify the results. And then, of course, you can also talk about those publication findings in talks and posters at conferences. I do think it's a fruitful activity. It gives you a lot of credibility. It gives you the opportunity to engage with KOLs, and it gives you that um, sort of impression of being less biased, which is, of course, important to your scientific audience. Another great thing to do with publications is we'll take multiple publications and package them into a white paper or a tech note that's a little bit more reader friendly. We'll also repurpose publications into blogs so that instead of sending people a link to the journal, which navigates them away from your website, we summarize the publication on your website. That way you get the SEO from that, and we can direct people there instead of sending them somewhere else. We've got about 3 minutes here if there are any other last-minute questions. We've got one final poll that we're gonna put out too, just to see how we might better support you guys. If we haven't talked before, if you don't know us already, feel free to visit our Contact Us page, fill out a form. We're happy to talk to you at any time. I will try to follow up with everybody individually as well to see if there are ways that we can better support you, and feel free to follow up with questions if they come to you after the fact as well. With that, I guess if there are no more questions, I will wrap things up. I hope everybody has a great day and a great holiday season. Thank you so much for coming.